Hello, welcome to 1 Hour SaaS. My name is Mubashir Iqbal. Everybody calls me Mubs, and this is hour 12 of me building podcast Ping. Today, I started building the user interface for adding a podcast into the monitoring system that we're going to have set up. And I did think about using a UI toolkit called Blade UI Kit. It looks like it's a very interesting way of using Blade components to assemble your interface. It's very new, and so I think that was the main reason I decided not to use it. It's just a little bit too new. I've never worked with it before, and I don't know what issues I'm going to run into, if anything. But erring on the side of caution, considering the amount of time that I have. So it's kind of stick with Tailwind UI in this case, just to kind of build the interface, and it's still lacking some stuff, but it's a lot further along than Blade UI kit is. Plus, I can more easily get into and add my own components and things if I need to. Um, so we have a functioning system. Well, we have a functioning page, I should say. So when you go to the podcast, you'll see a list of the podcasts. We don't have any yet. You can add a new podcast. I've really just built the interface at this point. I haven't actually built any of the functionality yet, but you can specify the name, the RSS feed URL, the website URL, the description, and then for the checks here, rather than hard coding this stuff, I decided to pull the list of checks using the check types table that we have set up in hour 10. Um, and then we kind of build this list of checks automatically out of those tables. I was lucky in that I named things fairly consistently between the slugs that we used in the check types. So just to give you a look at the code. So when we created the podcast table, I used these very expressive names in terms of check enabled and what each these things are. And then when I seeded the check types, I kind of used the same expressive names here for the slug for the check type, and then we added these groups for the different kinds of checks that they might be. And so I used that information. I used these groups and then these slugs and obviously the sort of names and things here to automatically build out. We kind of loop over. You'll see where I loop over. So give me all of the check types from the group RSS feed, and we loop over those, and we pull the field name out of that, and then we build the input checkbox based on the value of that. So these are the groups that we have of the check types. These are the individual checks within that particular check type, and then we kind of build that list out on the fly. So that was about all that I got up to in the hour that I had today. Tomorrow we'll kind of finish this bit out in terms of just finish out the form by having a save button or a submit button or whatever. And then we'll do some validation on the back to make sure we have all of the fields that we need and the URLs are valid and all of that kind of stuff. And then we might lose this bit because I think I want people to put in the full URL there. And then that was just the standard Tailwind UI bit. And then once we've done that, I'm going to add one more check, which is we're going to add a policy for the podcast to see who's actually authorized to create the podcasts. Because you might be on a team, but you might not be an admin on the team, and only admins are going to be allowed to create podcasts. So we're going to just add that check in as well. And then once all that's done, we'll update this listing of the podcasts that you're actually monitoring. And then the final check that we're going to have to add is based on your subscription, based on the plan that you're on, there's going to be a limit to how many podcasts you can add. So we'll have to add that check in as well to see if you've reached the maximum of your plan and you need to upgrade, or if you can still add a podcast. So that'll all be happening tomorrow, hopefully, and then we'll see how far we get. But yeah, that's it for now. Making good progress, I think. keep plugging away every day, and we get closer and closer to being able to call an MVP. But mostly, once the podcast is added, the rest of it is going to be just kind of building the checks and reporting on the status of the checks, and then just giving people ways to turn stuff off. So at some point, you might want to give people the ability to stop monitoring a podcast, maybe archive it, maybe remove it, sort of that kind of thing, or turn off individual checks instead. So, yep, so that's all going to be in the next week, hopefully. We'll get something working from end to end. I can get it deployed somewhere. I can actually test it while I finish out the rest of the check. So we'll just do the RSS feed check, get that built, get that deployed, get that running somewhere where the actual check is running, and then yeah, and then I can carry on finishing the sort of rest of the checks. But then that way I can actually see the system running from end to end, 100%. And it's just a matter of enabling all those other checks as well, and then we'll kind of see. But that's it, and I will see you in the next hour.